This is Metatherapy, where we talk about therapy itself. Not advice, not diagnosis, just understanding the process so you can use it better. Each episode of Metatherapy is psychoeducation, not therapy. If something resonates, it's meant to be language you can bring back into your own work. Your much more frightened part of you just showed up and took the wheel. Today, I'm sitting down with Nancy Pickard, an RLT coach and relational educator who works with people on exactly this terrain. The place where childhood survival strategies collide with adult intimacy, where cultural conditioning, what relational life therapy calls psychological patriarchy, quietly determines who gets to be vulnerable and who has to stay in the defense. And then where the neurobiology of the triggered brain makes us feel in the worst moments like we have no choice at all. We're going to talk today about winning and losing strategies, the 5 moves people make when relationships feel unsafe, and why every single one of them backfires. We're going to talk about what's actually firing in your brain when you feel taken over in conflict. And we're going to talk about the one thing most people get wrong about couples counseling. This is Thursday Thinkers. I'm Dominic Adori, and this is Metatherapy. So, as I mentioned, my guest is Nancy Pickard, a coach and psychoeducator trained in relational life therapy, the framework developed by family therapist and author Terry Real. Nancy works with clients on the relational patterns that keep love from working, the ways we perform strength when we need connection, and the ways we pursue when we should pause, and the invisible cultural scripts that shape all of it. Nancy, welcome to Metatherapy.
Thank you. Thanks
Great
for
to have you. So let's start with your origin story. Could you tell us a little bit about how you got into this work?
Well, I've been a coach for about 13 or 14 years, but I was doing solo work. I was first certified through the Debbie Ford, the Ford Foundation, and I was doing shadow work, all the disempowering beliefs that keep people stuck and how to get unstuck. And I eventually went on to write a book called Bigger, Better, Braver: Conquer Your Fears, Embrace Your Courage, and Transform Your Life. Same stuff, how to get unstuck and how to move forward to living a bigger, better life. And then I think I just happened on one of Terry's books. And eventually I read them all. And eventually in his book, Us, he started to talk about coaches and therapists. And I realized for the first time that he had a school. And that was it. I started a certification, which took about 2 years.
Okay.
And that was about 3 years ago, maybe a little over 3 years ago. And I've become a boot camp facilitator. So I teach weekend workshops with couples or solos on better skills. And I also teach relationship skill courses at night, on a weekly basis for, let's say, 10 weeks,
Mhm.
just so that it's easier to digest. People don't have to go just kind of cram it in 2 days. And it's all about better communication, intimacy, vulnerability, and actually recognizing that your childhood wounds called you into this person to help you heal your wounds. So they're not the wrong person, they're really the right person, but they're going to trigger you a lot until you learn what you need to learn.
Absolutely. Could not agree more. Before you found this framework and went through your training, and congratulations, I think that's amazing, 2-year program, but that's a good investment. It sounds like it's paid off. Before you found it, what were you noticing that wasn't being addressed in the field? Where was the gap?
Well, before I found it, I honestly wasn't working with couples at all, never. And
Mm,
so when you work with one person, you're truly working for individual empowerment. When you're working with a couple, you're working for relational empowerment.
right.
They have nothing, they're very different.
Hmm.
They're very, very different. That's why if I work with somebody who's already working with another therapist, I like to speak with the therapist because what they're seeing in front of them on a weekly basis has nothing to do with what I'm seeing. It's I'm seeing the person triggered in action in lifetime, and they're just hearing stories that are very one-sided about how, you know, how great they are and how poorly the partner is. If only my partner would do this. So
Right.
they're not really seeing the triggered dynamic like I'm seeing.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting and I do both individual and couples work, and I love both. So don't get me wrong, but there's something about being in session or doing the work with a couple because you get to actually see the full picture, the full story, and see where those trigger points happen, even before perhaps they even realize that conflict is kind of on the edge.
Right.
So let's start with the concept that drives a lot of your work, which is this idea of psychological patriarchy. And so, for someone hearing this for the first time, what does that actually mean? And what does it have to do with romantic relationships?
It has a lot to do with them. So it's really we describe it as the water we swim in. So we were brought up in psychological patriarchy. Our parents were brought up, their parents were brought up. And it's really where, whether you're a man or a woman, the masculine characteristics of power and strength and walled offness, non emotional, all of those are really exalted in our life, right? They're
Mhm.
given more power. Empathy, compassion, people pleasing, those are not thought of as strong qualities. So whether the man has them or the woman has them, you know, being one up and grandiose usually comes with the person who has those characteristics. And in today's world, women aren't that's not working for women anymore. And half the men just aren't getting that memo. So
Mhm.
they're still using the same patterns and the same, outline for marriage that their fathers used and their fathers used. But the women today are saying, no way, Jose, that's not going to cut it for me. They want an emotional man. They want somebody who's going to be more in tune with their feelings. They want somebody who's going to help teach their sons how to be emotionally intelligent young men,
Mhm.
and that their women deserve to be seen and heard and not ignored. And this all does not come in the world of psychological patriarchy. So changes have to be made. And for men who didn't get that information, it's very difficult for them to change until you really show them how, like, okay, you're winning every fight because you're overpowering your partner,
Mhm.
but you're losing the war because your partner is so resentful they want out of the relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, where's the starting point in the work when you see that kind of pattern, for instance?
Calling them out on it
Okay. Yep.
and showing, we have this relational grid where you're one up or you're one down, and that has to do with, are you shining the light of contempt down on your partner? That would
Mhm.
make you one up. Or are you shining it down on yourself and shame based, and that would put it on you? And
Mhm.
when I can see where people are on this grid, if they're up, I can help them to come down,
Mhm.
show them how it's not working for them, and help them be more same as, be more relational. And if they're one down, I actually can help them stand up for themselves, recognize that they need to work on their own self-esteem and actually be worthy of having their wants and needs met.
Absolutely. So I work in particular with a lot of clients who are in the LGBTQ plus community. And so I'm curious, how does this play out for gay couples, lesbian couples, and so forth? Because patriarchy has this kind of, sort of different tone to it. And I was just curious how you would you approach things the same or different in those scenarios?
No, I think it's exactly the same because it's not the sex of the person.
Hmm.
It's the characteristics that are getting more play.
Hmm.
So whether you're queer or gay or heteronormative or binary or
Hmm.
pansexual, whatever you are,
Hmm.
it's all the same. somebody in the relationship generally has more power than the other.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's really about the power dynamic and how that historical, as you mentioned, power dynamic that's been passed down generation after generation gets infiltrated into the individual. And so there's this, yeah, this dynamic that can happen. Okay, so you call it out, you see it, and then what happens with a person who is like, okay, I agree, maybe I'm a little power hungry, and maybe my dad taught me, you know, the to be the man of the house and to, all of that sort of stuff. What tools do you find are needed or are helpful for those individuals as they progress and start to make change?
Well, I think that the reason why people come to us is that the relationship is not working.
Mm,
So already you're one up, right? Already there's some leverage there.
mhm,
Your marriage isn't working. Your partner's not happy. Something's got to change.
mhm.
And I can teach you how to do it differently. You don't have to listen to me, but if you don't listen to what I'm telling you,
Yeah,
then nothing's going to change.
that's right.
And you're going to go find somebody else and see if they can give you a different story, but they won't.
Mhm.
So in RLT, we really confront the situation and we make it about the pattern, not
Mm,
the person.
mhm.
Because honestly, your wounds are totally lined up to trigger each other. And
Uh,
so if you had a different partner, it might not be the same. They may not get as upset about what you're doing as the partner you have, but this is the partner you have.
that's right.
So and the reason why you have that partner is that the universe brought them to you so you could heal your wounds and you could become more relational and more relationally mindful
Mhm.
and you could have a better relationship because you're the microcosm of the macrocosm. How you show up in your romantic relationship is how you show up in other relationships. So let's fix it because it's not working for you.
Absolutely. I love that. You're the microcosm of the macrocosm. That is so true. You talk about patterns. Sometimes I refer to it as the dance, right? There's this like thing that happens. There's a way in which a couple moves, right? Any trends that you see? Anything, any themes that you like, oh, I've seen this before. I've seen this before. Like, what's been your experience in,
All the time. I mean, how many times do you get a anxious attached person and a love avoidant person?
right?
So the more. We also talk about in RLT the dance or the
Hmm.
stance. I
Hmm.
do this, then you do this, then I do that, then I wall off, you wall off, game over.
Right. Exactly.
So basically, when you have somebody who's anxious about disrepair,
Hmm.
the moment there is disharmony, they chase after their partner. And the more they chase after the more the partner gets overwhelmed and they wall off.
Mm,
And so the more they wall off, the more the anxious person comes after you.
mhm.
Love me, love me, love me. I'll do anything, just love me.
Yeah.
I can't be okay until we're okay.
Mhm.
And then that overwhelms the love avoiding person and they just wall off even more. And that's the dance.
That's right. Mhm. So so great example, very common, right? So what are some of the things that you have found to be successful either in reframing and bringing awareness and education and also in terms of like actual practice?
Well, I have to help the anxiously attached person recognize that rushing after and needing to fix it in that moment is a
Mm,
losing strategy. It's from your adaptive child part of your brain. It's what you did as a child to be safe, and it was adaptive then, but it's maladaptive now.
mhm,
I have to help the overwhelmed, walling off person lean in to staying in, sharing more, and
mhm,
recognizing that, yeah, your partner might be anxious, but they are way more anxious because of you than they would be with a more secure partner that wasn't making them so anxious.
mhm,
So the work is for both of them to lean in to doing something different. I
mhm,
teach them how to take a healthy time out. That's a very prescribed amount of time. The person who takes the time out has to come back and check in when they say they're going to so that the other partner doesn't get anxious. I
Hmm.
teach the anxious partner that if your partner calls a timeout, you cannot chase them. You must let them go. And so it's a little bit about teaching everybody to be comfortable being uncomfortable,
Yeah.
not doing the thing
Hmm.
that they wanna do because that's maladaptive and that's not gonna get the results that you want.
Yeah, absolutely. So helping them to regulate, right? Really building regulation skills in those moments where they want immediate in the anxiously attached individual, they want immediate resolution. That's, unfortunately that's not possible. And here are some tools to be able to, calm down a little bit and just, be okay with that. And also understand that that doesn't mean this is never going to get addressed. It, in fact, is the way of the avoidant partner to be able to say, no, I want to have this conversation. Our relationship's important. In fact, so important that I need to take the time to kind of process what is going on for me. Right.
Right, and they also normalize disharmony, right?
Mm. Hmm.
People think, "Oh my god, we fight with the wrong person." Well, that's not true. You're with the right person.
Hmm.
You just haven't learned how to repair. So all relationships go through harmony, disharmony, and repair. That could happen 5 times in one dinner, right?
Hmm.
Your partner says something that pisses you off and you're like, "Oh my god, I can't believe I'm with this person."
That's
And then
right.
2 minutes later, they say something else and you're like, "Oh god, I love this guy," right?
Yeah.
And so that's normal. But what's also normal is that we did not grow up learning how to repair. We weren't taught repair. We never saw repair. We might see our parents fight and the next thing they're not fighting, but we didn't see what happened,
That's right.
right? And
Hmm.
and, parents generally don't come to you and say, "Honey, I'm really sorry. I was so mad at something else, or I was so overstressed. I took it out on you. I'm really sorry. What can I do to make it right?" Right?
Hmm.
I can't I mean, did your parents ever say that to you?
No.
Right. So we
Yeah.
don't learn that.
Right.
And so in RLT, we normalize marital hatred. We
Hmm.
normalize disharmony.
Hmm.
And then we teach them how to use a feedback wheel. So how to get what you want by making it about you and not the other partner and asking instead of demanding to get the changes that you want.
Absolutely. You brought up a really good point. And so for those parents out there who are in conflict, do you recommend that they be more upfront in front of their children about the whole conflict process so that their future generations and future clients down the road are not having that, only seeing the one side of the conflict and
I
not
do.
having the, yeah, yeah.
And I also really recommend that they repair with their children.
Mm,
If you want your children to model repair, repair with them.
mhm.
Be open and honest. I was upset. I was stressed. I took it out on you. I was wrong. What do you need from me right now to help you make it right? You know, that's repair.
That's right.
And also, sometimes I've seen, even with my own sons, I've seen them get into like their daughters are having a tantrum or their daughters are, you know, just out of control as females can be at times. And I will say to them, you have a responsibility to listen to your
Mm,
daughters. You
mhm,
are the man that's going to teach them that
mm,
they're entitled and worthy of a man listening to them. They don't have to agree, but you've got to give them their day.
sure.
Let them feel seen and heard. Let them learn that that's what a relationship should look like.
Mhm. Absolutely. I think that's great advice. Okay, we're gonna move into losing strategies.
Mm.
So I'll kind of list off each of them, and maybe if you could just kind of say a little something about each one and why it's a losing strategy, and if you've got any words of wisdom as it relates to each of them. So the first one, being right.
That's one of mine. I love to be right. A lot of us like to be right, and
Of course.
if you're on the top,
Hmm.
um, grid, you're grandiose, you wanna be right. The thing about wanting to be right is the next one is you wanna control, and they're similar, but they're different.
Okay.
The need to be right is not only do I want you to think not only do I want us to do it how I wanna do it, I want you to agree
That's right.
that my way is the right
Hmm.
way, right? And the next one is the need to control.
Hmm.
And the need to control is basically, I want you to do it my way, and I don't even care if you agree. It's a little
Right.
different, right?
Hmm.
And people who grow up in very chaotic families or families of alcoholic parents or narcissistic parents, or, they're one of seven siblings, they need to control to feel safe. It
Hmm.
regulates their nervous system
Right.
to be in control.
Hmm.
And so if that's why you're in control, it worked as a child. It was adaptive. Your adaptive part of your brain learned to do that, to control and take care of the wounded child part of your brain. But in your relationships today, needing to be right and needing to control only creates resentment
Hmm.
in your partner. So it doesn't bring you closer, it takes you further away. And that's why losing strategies are called losing strategies.
They don't work.
They
Yeah,
don't they
exactly.
don't work,
Yep.
right?
That is true. That is true. Unbridled self-expression.
Okay, so unbridled self-expression can happen with a man or a woman,
Hmm.
but women do it better. We forget
Love
nothing,
that.
right?
Hmm.
You said this, and yesterday you said that, and 16 years ago on March 30th, you said this.
Hmm.
And again, you've gone from a micro transgression to a macro, and nobody can fight against 10 things.
Right.
If you stick to the one specific thing, your partner can address it. But once you name all these things, they can't.
Yep.
Again, losing strategy. And, I will say that I don't know where my car keys are or my phone, but I know everything my partner said in the last 10 years. So
That's right. That's right. And they all, and you're right. This particular behavior is like the perfect packaging, right? It's like, it's not like you dole this out a little bit at a time. It's like when conflict arises, or when there's a feeling that the person's not being heard, or whatever the case may be, they just boom, it's just bombardment. It's just like one thing after the next. I sometimes find it interesting how those things get tied together, and it's like almost like a story of like, yeah, and you never listen to me, and here are all the reasons, here are all the examples, and they're all very different, they all have
and
nuance, right?
they're stored up, they're
They
ready to go. I think of it like a beach ball. You know how you take a big beach ball and you try to push it down in the water, and
Mhm.
you push it and you push it and you push it, and out of nowhere, it comes flying out sideways and it splashes you and everybody around you.
Mhm.
That's what happens with people, that
That's
they
true.
hold it in, they hold it in, they hold it in, and then they explode, and everyone is looking at them like, what just happened? Because the thing that was way bigger, their explosion was way bigger than the thing in the moment, but it was just the tip of the iceberg. They were waiting to explode.
Exactly. Exactly. All right. Next one, is retaliation. So punishing the
So,
partner.
yeah, retaliation is a perverse form of communication. Instead of me saying, you hurt my feelings, I'm going to show you what it feels like to be hurt.
Mm,
So you made me late for my partner's dinner, and now I'm going to make you late for this work event. Or I'm not going to have sex with you because you wouldn't take this vacation that I wanted to.
mhm.
Or, I'm not going to buy the foods that you want when I go grocery shopping because I'm mad at you.
Right.
I had a friend once who said to me, "I'm so mad at Bernie. I made him an omelet today with 6 eggs." Like she's gonna try to kill him, right? That
Right. Uh-huh.
that's retaliation.
That is
Oh,
retaliation. Yeah.
yeah.
And sometimes you're right. It's nuanced, right? It's like little ways in which there's uh, trying to, I mean, really trying to get attention of the other partner is kind of what's happening, and doing it sometimes in an unconscious way. But yeah, not effective. Not effective.
Yeah, or it's conscious,
Yeah,
like, I'm
that's right.
hurting and I want you to hurt.
That's right. Yeah, exactly, exactly. Sometimes that's exactly what individuals are doing, is just wanting to have that shared experience. And look, if I'm going to have an experience and it's not going to be pleasurable because of something I'm perceiving in the relationship, then I'll put us both on the same board of displeasure. And so, yeah.
And it's really lack of communication.
Hmm.
You're not healing anything because really what you've done is maybe your partner did something wrong and, like, in the dynamic in that moment, you were one up a little, like they owed you, they hurt your feelings, you're kind of
Hmm.
in the drivers, but the moment you do something that's equally bad
Hmm.
and not only equally bad, but yours is intentional.
Right.
Theirs may not have been intentional, but your retaliation, that's intentional.
Hmm. Yeah.
Now you're just as bad as they are or worse.
That's right. Exactly. Exactly. All right, the last one, which I definitely have fallen into this one myself, is withdrawal. So
Yeah.
emotionally or physically shutting down and disengaging.
Mhm. And withdrawal can be freezing. You could actually
Mm,
not leave, but you've shut down, you're not talking. You're as good as gone, but you're not gone. It's very common, and if you are withdrawing because you're overwhelmed and you don't
mm,
know what else to do, and your nervous system is deactivated and you just can't do anything else,
mhm,
that's withdrawal.
mhm,
If you withdraw because you've got an anxious partner and you know that if you pull away, that's going to freak them out,
mhm.
you're back in retaliation.
Good point. Yes, that's true.
Mhm.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So it's more about what's the intent here and how thought through is this particular thing. And then
Yeah.
you have some clients that dissociate, right? And so you have
Right.
kind of the other extreme, which is they may not be that this defense mechanism may be there, that they're not even aware that that's what's happening, or there needs to be some education and self knowledge that that's what's occurring,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
And also the partner has to realize if your partner's withdrawing, you're overwhelming them. They're
Right.
doing the thing that they learned to do to be safe, and their nervous system is just trying to stay safe.
Mhm.
And the more you come at them and the more you complain and the more you argue and the more you need an answer right now, you're
Right.
actually you're actually creating more withdrawal because they're overwhelmed. They can't do anything different. They're stuck
Mhm.
in that. They're frozen
That's
in
right.
that.
Right. Exactly. All right. So we've covered the things that don't work. Tell me a little bit about what are the winning strategies? What are some of the things that do work? What are some of the skills that you teach your couples in order to be more communicative and open and just productive in general?
Okay. Well, one of them is to dare to rock the boat so
Okay.
that you can get your needs met, right?
Hmm.
So that you actually recognize from a place of self esteem that you are worthy of having your needs met.
Hmm.
And if you're not happy and you're not getting your needs met, then dare to rock the boat. You speak from an I statement. You make it about you. I teach the feedback wheel, which is a way to say what's going on with just a few sentences because most people's nervous system can't hold on to an unbridled whole big thing.
Mhm.
I feel this and I need this. And would you be willing to do that? This is the story I made up about it. So you're keeping it all about you. That helps. And then you, instead of just burying everything and all your resentment, you bring it to light. You let your
Mhm.
partner know this is not working for me. This is what I need. And you make it all about you. And could you do this for me? Would you be willing? What do
Mhm.
you need from me so you could give me what I need?
Mhm. Exactly. Expressing what the core need is. Do you do any, where you have the partner kind of restate back what they're hearing and then talking about what part of the need, if any? I mean, hopefully there's some part of the need that can be met pretty quickly, but do you use that sort of way of getting the partner to restate?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah. I do reflective listening. So when I
Yeah.
talk about, so another winning strategy is listen to understand.
Yeah.
And the way I talk about that is that there should be a listener and a speaker. And when you're the listener,
Mhm. Yep.
you're just listening for their subjective reality.
Mhm.
You're not listening to punch holes in it. You're not listening saying, geez, I wouldn't have thought that, or I can't believe how overly upset they're getting over that, or they do that to me.
Right.
I don't want you to be listening to then give another answer because then you're not really listening. You're thinking about your response.
That's right.
So when we do in RLT, the speaker is the only one that's really talking about their feelings, and the
Mhm.
listener is trying to stay in the seat, in their self esteem, with a
Mhm.
good containing and protective boundary around them, and just listening to what the partner's subjective reality is. And then responding, this is when, if you're not sure about something, you can do what you were just saying. All right, let me get
Mhm.
this straight. I walked in and I did this, and the story you made up was that. And that story made you feel really desperate and frustrated and sad, and what you need from me is X. Did I get
Right.
it right?
Mhm. Exactly.
And then I talk about relational generosity. You give your partner what they want as long as it's not asking too much. I
Mhm.
don't care if you've had to be the one to give it to them 5 times in a row. That's what's healthy for the ecology of your ecosystem, you
Right.
know?
Mhm.
Happy spouse, happy house. So, if you can give them what they're asking, you give it to them.
Mhm.
And then you also take accountability. Wow, I can see how that hurt you.
Mhm.
I can
Yeah.
see why you're upset.
Mhm.
I hear you. I'm sorry you're upset. It still doesn't mean you're sorry for what you did. You may not be,
Right.
but you can still be sorry that they're hurt and
Yeah.
upset.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, sometimes I'll ask clients who are the listeners, to act like journalists. You're just collecting a different view of the same events, perhaps. And your job is really to gain as much perspective from their lens rather than from your own. And sometimes, so there's a couple of things that I think play into this is the speed in which these interactions happen. Do you tend to find that there are some couples that just like, there's one person in the couple who's like, boom, 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 boom. And then the other one is like, needs more time to process. And there's this discordance. And sometimes I'll use like, well, be like a journalist and like take notes. How about that? Like if your mind is racing and you need that kind of stimulation, then take some notes, that sort of thing.
Exactly. I have to say that to the client who is so unbridled that she can't let her partner finish a sentence, right?
Right.
She's
Right.
got to interject. She's rolling her eyes. She's saying no. She's going like this to me,
Yeah,
all of that. I give them, take a pad and pencil, write it down. I'll get to you, but not now.
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, for
You
sure.
use the word reality and truth, right? Can you talk a little bit? Because I struggle with how to convey this to clients myself. Basically, this essence of, and this goes back to the wanting to be right, right? Each person is like, no, 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 this is what happened. And then they become like the attorney on record. They're like, no, but we left at 9:05 and we were supposed to be there at 9:09, and then it becomes this like gathering of evidence sort of thing. So how do
Yeah.
you approach clients like that
Well, it
with that?
becomes an objectivity, battle. You yelled at me. No, I wasn't yelling. Yes, if I had a meter right now, it would go off the charts. You were
Yeah.
speeding. No, I wasn't speeding. Who's in RLT? We say who's right and who's wrong is who cares,
Good.
right?
Yeah, there you go. Yes.
It's not about who's right and who's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It's about being seen and heard, and it's about everybody's needs getting met, and it's about being on the same team. And I think most people who come to me, they're not on the same team anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a real problem. When I explain and really get them to see that their childhood wounds are perfectly designed to trigger the hell out of each other,
Mm-hmm.
and that when your partner is in their adaptive child, what they are doing is the only thing they can do. They're not doing it to you.
Right.
They're doing the only thing that they can do. When I can explain that, they can have more compassion for their pattern,
Mm-hmm.
and then they can make different choices. And basically, the biggest choice is to take a time out when one of you is triggered. If you're in your adaptive child, there's never going to be communication, vulnerability, or intimacy. You can't do those things unless you're from a same as position.
Mm-hmm.
One up
That's
and
right.
one down, you can't do that.
Right.
And so taking the time out so that you can regulate your system and come back from the prefrontal cortex, the wise adult part of your brain that can be more nuanced and more flexible and more realistic and more open to long term versus short term gratification. That's the only place that you can do some work from.
Absolutely. So I'm glad we've moved into the brain. Can you talk a little bit about, at a high level, what some of the neuroscience and neurobiology is when a couple is in conflict?
Yes, definitely. I love it. So, the subcortical part of your brain, which is the first part of the brain that, where they call it the amphibian part of the brain. This is where you do all the autonomic things, right?
Hmm.
But this is also like where your wounded child, the 0 to 4 years old, is. And then as the brain develops a little bit more, you're here in the subcortical part of the brain. And this is what we call the adaptive child part of the brain. And this part of the brain has been formed to take care of and talk to this part of the brain. I'm going to keep you safe.
Hmm.
Fight, flight, freeze, or fix right here. Okay. As we mature, somewhere between like 25 or 26 years old, the prefrontal cortex, which is in here, is developed and it covers the adaptive child. So, right
Hmm.
now, my wise adult part of my brain is in charge of my adaptive child part of my brain, speaking to my wounded child part of my brain. Everything is good. I'm talking to your wise adult. You're talking to my wise adult. We're like this right now.
Hmm.
When I get triggered, I go like this and I flip my lid. And my
Mm.
wise adult is now offline. And the only part of my brain that's in control is the teenager, the
Hmm.
rebellious teenager, the adaptive child who thinks we think this part of us is still the adult us, but it's not. It's the childish us. It's
Right.
black or white. It's a perfectionist. It doesn't care about vulnerability. It doesn't care about intimacy. It doesn't care about relationality. It can only do what it can do, and that's fight, flight, freeze, or fix.
Hmm.
And I have to teach people that they cannot have a conversation from here.
Right.
If they're here or they recognize the person that they're talking to is here, they have to take a time out till they can get back here.
Hmm. Awesome. I love it. Love it. Great, great way of describing it. That's very clear, succinct, and easy for anybody to understand. So well done. I love it. Unfortunately, we're running low on time. So let's move into myths. Can you talk a little bit about some of the myths about couples counseling and what you think is holding couples back from, yeah, from utilizing it?
Yeah, I think the biggest myth is that people think they have to be on the brink of divorce
Mm,
to get couples counseling. That's
yes.
the biggest myth. So, like right now, I teach relationship skills courses, and some of my students in the classes, they're just engaged or they're
Hmm.
dating.
Right.
They're actually in a good place and they want to stay there.
Hmm.
They're looking at the odds, like we're going to get married and 50% of marriages don't make it. So we want to learn now how to get it right.
Hmm.
And I think that's the biggest thing. And then also people's myths are, I'm going to bring my partner to the therapist and they're going to fix my partner and then we're going to be fine,
That's right. Yeah.
right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Hmm.
another myth. Or the myth is that, we're going to go to therapy and they're just going to call me out. I'm going to be the problem. They're going to call me out. I know I'm screwed up. I don't want to go. I don't need to do that.
Right.
So,
Again, winners and losers, right? It's this notion that, oh, you're going to be the bad guy. I'm going to be the good. No, it's not how it works. We're all on,
right.
everybody's doing the best they can. Like that's a great starting point for any kind of work, but in particular couples work, right?
Yeah. And also, sometimes people come to me and they've been going to therapists, like talk therapists for 3 years and they haven't
Hmm.
gotten anywhere. And I notice that they come to me and they think, well, we get to just to come and pay the money and spend the hour venting.
Right. Right.
And that I'm a coach. That doesn't work for me. I
Yeah.
need movement. I need action. I need change.
Hmm.
So I'm happy to hear if you had a fight because then I can start to see the pattern.
Hmm.
But there's no way I'm going to sit there every week and have you just vent about each other and then leave feeling better, trashing me. I now feel like crap, right?
Hmm.
And they didn't learn anything. They didn't learn any skills. They didn't learn any change.
Hmm.
So that doesn't work for me.
Hmm.
And I don't clients.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think this is the crux of why I started this podcast actually is this idea that there's such a shroud around therapy and it's like, and look, I respect all different forms of therapy. I think there's definitely advantages to different ways of going about it. But at the end of the day, if you're gaining lots of insight and not changing and not actually improving your life, kind of it feels like that's not a win, right? That's not a productive way to utilize therapy or coaching or or any of these
Right.
particular so I agree with you. I think insight alone is not enough, and that it actually takes work. And I think that's one of the myths as well. That at least in my experience is that people think, "Oh, I'm going to come in and we're going to get told what we're doing right, wrong, and we'll make some minor adjustments, and then everything will be good." And it's like, no, there's actual work. Like there's actual like stuff that happens between sessions and so forth, right?
Every day.
Every
Every
day.
day it's a choice. Am I going to
Exactly.
be relationally mindful or not? Every
Exactly.
day.
Yeah. So, one last question. If you could give every listener one takeaway from this conversation, one shift in how they understand their own relational patterns, what would
Mhm.
that be?
It's that the pattern is the problem in your marriage. It's not you versus him or her. It's the dance that you're doing is not productive. And when you can recognize that your partner, when they're triggered, is doing the only thing they can, and so are you have to not engage then.
Hmm.
You can come back to it another time, but you take a conscious time out so you don't get anybody anxious. You do not, like a timeout is basically saying, dear partner, right or wrong, in this moment, I don't trust the next thing I'm going to say, and I want to protect us. So
Right.
I'm going to remove myself right now so that I don't cause harm.
Absolutely. Great, great advice. So, Nancy, if anybody's out there looking for someone to work with to build these skills, to learn these lessons, to start practicing as a couple in a relationship, how do they find you? How do they engage with you? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So I'm on the Relational Life Therapy or the Relational Life Institute website. So
Mhm.
as a million other people, they can find me there.
Okay.
They can follow me on Instagram or Facebook, Nancy Pickard Life Coach.
Hmm.
They can go to my website, Nancy Pickard lifecoach.com, and they can have a free discovery call. Like nobody can hire me until I see that we are both a good fit and that I have the tools that they need to help them and that I think that they're ready. Not
Uh-huh.
all couples are therapy ready, right? Not all couples are really ready to do the work. So we have a free call so
Hmm.
that they can find out about me and how I work and how much I charge. And I can see whether or not I think that I am a good fit for what their issues are.
Awesome. Perfect. Nancy, it has been an absolute pleasure. This is like one of my favorite topics. So
Me
but
too.
you've done a wonderful job of explaining and very clear and clearly you have good experience. So really appreciate you coming on the podcast today.
Thank you. I loved it. And it's my favorite conversation too.
Awesome. So, for our listeners, what Nancy is describing, this collision between old survival strategies and the present day love we're trying to build, is one of the most important things a person can understand about themselves. Not because the understanding alone will fix anything, but because you can't find your way out of a pattern that you can't see. The losing strategies she named, odds are good you use at least two of them. I know which ones I reach for. And the thing that makes us so persistent isn't weakness, it's that they worked once, they got you through. The problem is they're still running in a relationship that no longer requires that kind of self protection. If this conversation landed for you, share it with someone who's in it, who's trying to build something real and wondering why the patterns keep coming back. That's exactly who Nancy's work is for. And it's exactly who this channel is for. My name is Dominic Adori. This has been Metatherapy. I'll see you next Thursday.